Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is a special night. Tonight marks the return of a show of legendary quality where the issues are discussed in heated debate between mortals who are brave enough to open their mouths and speak their minds. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest episode of Disorderly Conduct. I'm here with my co-host, James.
Hello there.
James, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
It's been a spectacular week.
It has. It's been incredibly interesting. Lots of things going on.
There's so much going on, but it's hard to pick what's the important things. So I've started at the top. The thing on the minds of most European politicians at the moment, Ukraine. Okay, at the moment it's pretty crazy out there. There was meant to be a ceasefire, but I believe they've already started shooting each other again.
Great.
Putin is apparently now going, "I want peace." Ukraine's pulling back because all sorts of chaos, not just in the east.
I thought they're pulling everything out as of Tuesday.
Apparently they're pulling out, but as always with this situation, James, apparently it may not happen depending on what's going on. All the heavy arms are meant to be coming out. They're pulling back to a buffer zone. The Russians are pulling out their heavy artillery. This is happening for one of two reasons: partly because there is so much violence out there, but also partly because all sorts of chaos is springing out around Ukraine. So you've got situations where the president's effectively losing control of the country, protests at major cities. So you're seeing everybody pull back and go, look, let's calm the situation down, which you think they would have done after they blew an airline passenger plane out of the air. But there you go.
Okay, what's that got to do with me? I'm here in Fulham, in London. What's that actually got to do with me?
Well, funnily enough,
what's the point?
Gas.
Well, that's great, and there's a lot of it, and there's probably a lot of gas coming, being spoken around this table right now. But why do I need to worry about this? Why do I care?
Okay.
Why do I care about Ukraine? Why do I care about Russia?
Let me put it to you this way, James. Do you remember when you were young and being afraid of nuclear war?
No, not really.
No, you don't remember those days?
No, I duck and cover was a little bit before me, mate.
I'm not believing you, Jay. How old are you?
All right, I don't like to disclose. 33.
Okay, no, 33. That's fair enough. Let me bring it to you. Okay, we're potentially looking at a situation where war could happen between Europe and US and Russia. It is unlikely, but it's highly probable.
I don't believe that at all.
Why not?
No, because the whole idea of the Cold War originally was so the US had an enemy that it could put all of its resources into to create scare tactics for the individuals that live in its country, so they live in a state of fear.
Wait a second, you saying it was
control?
You saying it was America's fault?
I don't think it was anyone's fault. I just don't think it was ever going to happen in the first place. I think it was all blown out proportion, like most media.
What, do you deny that the Iron Curtain existed?
No, I'm not denying any of that. No way. It existed, but there's too much that didn't happen for me to worry about what is going to happen, because I don't think people are actually that stupid to press the button on each other.
You say that, but that's how most wars start and end, isn't it? Nobody believed anybody was stupid enough to actually invade somewhere else, but they have. How it affects you is in terms of war, sanctions. If you get sanctions, prices go up.
The US and Russia actually go to war with each other. Are you kidding me? To the largest economic superpowers on the planet. You're telling me that the biggest ones that could theoretically destroy the rest of the planet are actually going to go to war?
No, they've almost done it in the past. Why not now?
Because they've grown up slightly. I say slightly.
They have invaded. Are you denying Russia's invaded Ukraine?
No.
Right, so that's happened, okay?
I'm not denying that.
Right.
But what are the ins and outs of that? But my point is, Ukraine is a small country.
Yep.
Russia is a large country.
Yep, tiny.
The US is a large country. Russia is a large country.
Yeah.
I doubt they're ever going to go to war because of the consequences of whatever that war would entail. Why would China go to war with any of the larger countries?
They annoyed them enough. Well, you forget stuff like the Cuban. Look, Russia and America have almost gone to war several times over the past 40 years.
Yep.
Don't forget the Cuban Missile Crisis. The only reason that didn't end up as a war was because Russia pulled back at the time. There's a good chance, especially with our dear leader Putin, that he'll keep going.
When was the Cuban Missile Crisis?
The 60s, late 60s.
50 years ago.
Yeah.
I rest my case.
And then we had the Cold War for another 30, 40 years. I mean, don't underestimate how angry people are. I mean, all it takes, and the reason why it hasn't gone too far yet is because the EU have backed off a lot and gone, look, all we want is peace. Europe's had peace for 50 years.
No, there's too many business deals for it to go tits up. If it's going to be economically,
between who?
If it's going to be economically viable for more people than less people, for two superpowers to go to war, then they will go to war.
They've got sanctions at the moment, which is annoying Russia. So they've banned a lot of trade. The Russian currency has gone down to junk. Nobody's buying junk status, so nobody's investing in it. Nobody's buying it.
Okay.
Their economy is going down the panhole. People are losing jobs. That makes leaders very desperate. You just have to look at Argentina and the junta at the time of the Falklands War. You say they'll never go to war, but then there shouldn't be a war in Ukraine now. It's pretty much on the edge of Europe. It's Eastern Europe, for God's sake. It's a modern country. So is Moscow. Why would you expect any of them to go to war? War starts by accident, but with intention half the time.
What's the financial increase for somebody going to war with Ukraine?
What was the increase of Russia taking over Crimea? There was no reason for them to take Crimea, but they did, and they took it by force.
I disagree. I think everything is financially focused in this world.
Your cynicism, James. I'm not going to say I disagree with you. I agree with you in part, but it's nothing to do with finance. Russia didn't take Crimea because of finance.
I think
they're now paying in the region of $6 billion a year to Crimea. They're paying people to go on holiday. It's brought them no financial benefits whatsoever.
I disagree. I think there's probably some deal or something that's been set up that's making more money than they're losing.
Have you got any evidence for this?
I haven't got any evidence for this.
Where does that come from? Because let me read you a quick statement, all right? And this is the thing that was very telling for me, okay? This was said by a volunteer in the army fighting on the rebel side, fighting against the Ukrainians.
Yep.
The Ukrainian authorities are not responsible for starting this war. It's Britain, Europe, and the West. And this was a trained lawyer, right?
Okay.
He's been serving in the Interior Ministry's forces, partly in Chechnya, and now he's left his wife, baby, everything to come and fight. And he's fighting to protect Russia, okay? From Western countries who are going to attack and invade Russia, okay? That's crazy.
That is a little bit crazy.
That's over the edge insane, but this is what this guy and a lot of other people believe, right? Yep. They believe it's a Western conspiracy. Now, I'm not saying that maybe the EU didn't overplay their hands in the Ukraine by trying to encourage Ukraine to join the EU. But, for them to sit there and go, we're not really fighting against Ukraine, we're fighting against Britain and the West. There's crazy in here, and when you've got that amount of crazy involved, that can easily lead to war, can it? Or am I just scaremongering? I need to be.
No, I don't think you're scaremongering. You're just acting as a devil's advocate for the whole situation. And the fact, I'll throw it back and say, okay, how much on the ground information do you know and have your fingertips to be able to completely understand this situation? And the thing is, it's going to end up just being either one, based on opinion for the most part, number two, based on the facts that you can get hold of, which will be internet based, probably some news article based. If you just spent enough time on it, then probably Twitter based to see what people are thinking on the ground, but that wouldn't necessarily count as enough journalistic value in Twitter, or honest value, or something that can be backed up in its own right. And so where's that coming from? How is it actually going to affect me? How is it going to affect us?
But then you have to start somewhere, and where I started was I did go to a few of the news channels, checked it out, Al Jazeera, BBC. Right. The one channel I didn't go to was Russia's Today. But there's various reasons for never going to that channel for any news. Because it's a Russian version of Fox News. but worse.
What do you think? Birmingham's a Muslim-only city.
Yeah, if anybody was putting those stories out, it was Russia Today first. I mean, Russia Today's been putting stories out which make no sense if you live in the UK. I don't think I've seen one story about Russia on Russia Today.
Okay, that's great, but what's that got to do with this point here?
Because I think it plays a massive part. I think this is what Putin's created is a propaganda machine that actually works, and it works on people to convince them that the West is the enemy. Okay, so all these volunteers, all this disruption in Ukraine, he's built that, but soon he's going to have to pay for this. He's going to have to pay up for all these promises he's made these people. Okay, so all these guys going, yeah, it's because of Western imperialism. They're getting told that that's because of what it is, and it's not. What it is that there's a few Russians in the Ukraine. The Ukraine's one of the main points of oil going through to Europe from Russia, and the Russians want a say in Ukraine, and they cannot stand the idea that they move towards.
So you're saying Ukraine is about oil as well?
Yes, but not in the sense that people are looking at it and going, the Americans, this is the Russians doing the whole oil plundering thing, and they're doing it so clumsily. They now have created a situation they can't actually control, and they have to back them up now.
So by that rationale, Russia didn't stop the US going into Afghanistan or Iraq because of oil, and so that means the US won't go into Ukraine to stop what's going on because of Russia's interest in oil and gas.
The Americans weren't going because
it's exactly the same thing.
No, the Americans weren't going to Europe. The Russians couldn't stop the Americans going to Afghanistan. I doubt the Russians could stop anybody with any real power going into anywhere. I think this is blaming the Americans is an easy scapegoat in all situations, and I think that's what the Russians have done for ages. They've built up a massive propaganda machine that goes, the Ukrainians are a bunch of Nazis, so what we're going to do is protect the Russians in the east and the Russian-speaking populations. But really, all they're doing is, as per usual, bullying smaller countries. And they wouldn't dare bully a bigger country. They wouldn't dare challenge the might of the USA. What they're doing is making it seem like the USA is at the core of it all as an excuse.
I think I said that from the beginning when I was talking about the Cold War with the US and Russia. Haven't we gone full circle?
I agree that they will not go to war, but I think all it's going to take for that to change is this to carry on for much longer.
Well, read a bit of Milton Friedman, mate.
Yeah, all this going to take is just one thing to take it or change it. And if it wasn't Barack Obama in power, they probably would be at war already, because the way the Republicans are talking, they'd be like, yeah, we're not having this, we're going in.
Look, if there's going to be a world war, then President Bush would have made that happen. Let's be honest about that.
Possible.
So I don't think Barack Obama has enough influence or power to actually create a war that he doesn't push the button on. I just don't think that's possible. I think there's too many cogs in that machine in the first place, and Barack Obama is often touted as just being another a multi-headed hydra that's just come to the surface that looks slightly different than the last hydra that came to the surface before he had his head chopped off and someone else didn't vote for him, or well, he couldn't be voted because he already had 2 terms anyway. So it doesn't really matter, so again, I come back to the whole thing. Yes, okay, that you have people that are indoctrinated, but we've been indoctrinated for hundreds or thousands of years anyway by whatever's going on around us anyway.
But don't we always question what's around us? So that's just, look, this is why
this guy,
in a way, the new he doesn't, but the new establishment.
I don't think we do. A new establishment.
I think we do question stuff around us, but I think in the West we become so cynical about it. And I think this is where the difference is between, let's say, what goes on here and what goes on in Russia. As much as we've got problems here, we always question stuff. That's why we've had a culture of it, whether it's Monty Python, the new establishment, or the 2 Ronnies. We question everything around us. We're British people are generally born cynical, I think, to a degree.
But we question, but we're still apathetic. We don't actually take action. We question, we complain, we don't take action. Where's the action? I mean, the only person that seems to be taking action, and everybody seems to hate the guy, is Russell Brand. He brings a bit of, I wouldn't say political clout, but media clout when it comes to political issues. He steps up, turns up, big Hollywood movie star, across the continent. He across the pond as well in the US. He is a global figure that can actually have some sway politically.
And he went out with Katy Perry.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, there's lots of things about the guy. Yes, okay. His career basically started because he was presenting Big Brother. He's had heroin addiction. He's had sex addiction. He's been married to Katy Perry. All the things this guy
has.
The amount of experience this guy has built up to then turn and change and say different things. I sound like this is like a Russell Brand. I'm behind the guy.
No. I hear what you're saying. I have issues with Russell Brand. I've got issues with him based on the fact that he did come out and instead of going, actually, he was being anti-establishment, which was really cool. It was good, for the young people. Sorry to patronise you in that way, young folks, but I think he let himself down when he made the mistake of he started being a rebel, but instead of turning the tide, he actually just went, well, I'm not voting, I'm not getting involved with anything, and didn't offer any answers.
I don't think so. I mean,
mistake on his part.
If you read Revolution, then there are a number of answers that he's coming up with and proposes, but the fact that he's got the clout to be able to put a mirror up to society as we currently live it, and then people go, oh my God, don't we just hate Russell Brand? He's done more for British politics right now with the young generations than anybody has in the last 10 generations for the youth. And so nobody can really say that he's having a detrimental effect, that he's actually causing all this rhetoric, which is incredible. It's partly
I don't
genius.
know. I think he's jumped on the bandwagon that was already there. I think that's
who else was saying it? Who can you say was saying it, and why is it poignant in your mind that?
Because all the youth movements I've seen over the past 20 to 30 years have been about that. All the student movements have been about that. All the protests that I've seen up and down the years have been about that. Yeah. I think Russell Brand was very good at feeding into that because he's a very rational, logical man. Except I think all that feeling was already there.
It's the same argument is that nothing is actually new. No idea is new. Everything is just repackaged, remolded, and resent back, and he's just another remolding of that.
Basically. He's got into it. That's not my problem with him. I think my problem with him is he needs to follow it through. If you're talking like you're a leader, if you're talking like you're a leader,
so would you vote for him?
That's a loaded question, and we'll leave that for later in the show. Now, moving on. I know he's not going to talk, but ladies and gentlemen, we've been joined by another hero of disorderly conduct. It's T-Dog. Thank you for joining us, T-Dog.
Bonjour, I'm just having a beer. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to jump in at any point you wish to. I can't leave you alone, Tone. You're a beautiful man. But thank you for joining us here. Now, moving on. We've spoken about this a few times in the past. I know a few of you either own a house, renting a place, or like myself, live in the housing of the social kind, which really shouldn't be the name of it because people aren't very social in social housing a lot of the time, but I do now speak to my neighbours. So there is apparently a housing crisis. It's gotten worse in recent years. People are not happy. I've mentioned it in the past before. I've spoken to a few people who are politically minded about it, and depending on whether they own a house or not, their response is either you need to build more houses, or if you can't afford to live there, leave. Now, how do you boys see on it? Do you think there's a crisis? The statistics say there's a crisis, okay? Got a few stats here. But people are just going, well, it's just people need to leave. For years we've been telling people to come to London. Now housing's gone, prices have gone up. The disorderly conduct wants to know, should you just leave? Is it time for you to get your old kit bag and jog on, basically? Go live somewhere else if you don't have
if you're talking about evicting people from council homes, so new homes can be built that are nicer, more expensive, so more wealthy people can make more money.
Helps the economy?
I guess it can do in some shape or another, but then again, evicting people out of their current abode is not the way to do it. I mean, why displace people? Why shift them on? Why annoy them? Why not just
because they can't afford to, man.
They can't afford to have.
They've got no right to be in here. They want social housing. They're taking taxpayers' money.
I can't answer that. Well, there's obviously reasons why they're doing that in the first place. I mean, okay, let's pick a handful of reasons. Okay, give me a reason why.
Stats.
Give me some stats.
Between 2011 and 2021, 526,000 new homes will need to be built in London just to keep up with new housing demand. London's population is expected to increase by over 1 million in the next decade. Only 250,000 homes will be built on current projections. That's almost one half of the homes that we need, right?
Okay.
A further 283,000 homes will also need to be built, along with the 526,000 homes, on the current supply levels to meet both new demand and a backlog of housing need in London. In total, 809,000 homes are needed by 2021 to meet new housing needs as the backlog, as well as the backlog of housing need. So that's just under 1 million homes that are needed. They're not being built. We are getting a lot of construction going on in London.
What I'd like to find out is how about the decade before? How many new houses were built? How many people were
hardly any. I believe it was all new builds. In the last decade, most of them being luxury builds. Housing associations have built a few homes.
Okay.
Lewis Trust, Peabody Trust. They've been building some housing. In fact, they were the biggest, probably after luxury house and private house builds, they were probably the biggest group building homes.
So basically, your argument is, okay, evict the people that are in social housing so we can build better, bigger, higher, taller.
For people that can afford it.
For people that can afford it, and because of the population crisis that London is about to face.
That's what they're saying.
Get rid of them.
Build, knock down those estates, send them to Stoke. This is what,
But doesn't that cause a problem in Stoke?
Stoke. Have you been to Stoke recently?
No, but what I'm saying is, in Stoke, for example, in Stoke, there's no work anyway. So you're moving people onto places.
Move them there. Maybe it'll create an atmosphere of motivation. Because obviously, the only reason they can't afford to is they must be lazy. So let's send them away.
How about we think of it this way? There is no reason to evict anybody because the technology is there to build houses and abodes in every different place in different ways. There must be tenement buildings that are pretty much empty anyway.
But that costs money. Why should I put them people in there? Why not?
I'm not saying put them in there. I'm saying knock those down and rebuild them. The technology is there to build houses in a way to be able to house everybody in a city like London. The space is there.
But there's not enough resources.
How do you know?
Not enough schools, not enough transport system.
Well, there are enough schools. Unfortunately, with the new schooling system, you'll find that all these modern schools have just popped up in places that they had schools already. Because they were private, I can't remember what they're called, academies. They pop up in just rich, affluent areas. Not in anywhere that's actually...
Yeah, but it's not the rich people's fault that they're getting all the resources.
Well, I'm not saying it's...
They've earned the right to those resources, have they not?
Infrastructure placed in... Because at the end of the day, if you take out your bog standard working men, your bin sweepers, everything like that, your bus drivers, where are they going to live? 400 miles away? Commute into London? Not be able to afford their rent then because they have to pay for travel?
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter. It has to be a proper infrastructure, and that includes, unfortunately, for the rich or the powers that may be, housing which is affordable for the poor who do work.
So why not just give away the houses for free?
All housing should be free anyway, mate.
But then we'll have chaos.
No, we wouldn't.
Yeah, we'll have if they don't earn the house, they're not going to appreciate it.
Well,
You've seen Benefit Street.
Our mortgage market is based on...
You've got that new show, Immigrant Street, next week. If you give it to them for free, look what they're doing.
I think that's a one-sided point of view, guys.
And which brings me on to my next point. You see, now, you guys were humouring me, which I appreciate greatly, right? Because it's a difficult subject to hit on, right? The housing market is the only market that isn't regulated in this country in terms of things that affect people the most, okay? My entire issue with the situation over housing, especially in places like Fulham, is yes, there is the argument that people should leave. There's always been that argument. That's fair enough. But it's about community, surely. You know, London's unique as a city in this country. It's the most mixed. It's the most, you know, you can find whatever you want in London. And you used to up until like 30 years ago. If you weren't wealthy, you could have a good time in London.
So is that a separate argument? You're saying that because we are evicting the people in social housing, most of those people are of an ethnic minority, and so we're going to lose that community spirit for all the different ethnicities, and it's going to become one big white man parade. Is that what you're saying?
No, but I did like that. So what I'm saying is that, London used to be about opportunity. You always had the opportunity for everybody to a certain degree. Right?
Still is.
It is, but it isn't. What you've got is a situation where you've got massive, super wealthy landlords.
Yep.
You got people who are deciding whether they're going to pay their rent or eat.
Yep.
You got people who, are in social housing, who are working, who have earned their home, have whatever, but they might not have enough money to buy it, who are basically being told that you're a drain on society. But these, at the same time, when I get up in the morning, I'm on a train at 7 whatever o'clock in the morning, these are the people who are getting up to work at that time, because they're going to clean those offices, they're going to do their office jobs or whatever, right? But what's going on in the current market is it's just set towards wealthy people. And even the affordable housing rules, I'm sorry, if you go to any of those exhibitions, you've got to be earning about, 44 to 47 grand. Between that amount, right, I don't know anybody in London who earns that exact amount. And when they don't sell them, they just put them on the open market. And once you create an imbalance in society, the gap between the rich and poor is greater than it's ever been since World War II. What does that tell you? Is that healthy for a society? No, it's not. There isn't one person that will tell you that's good. But every single party seems happy to let that carry on. Even Labour. I can't remember the last time Labour mentioned housing in London.
There seems to be a number of different arguments that you're touching on there.
But it all ties into...
fair play, it does tie in, but I just think it's being thought of in the wrong way, and the individuals that are in those social housing, we're thinking of those people as having enough aspiration, enough mental brain power. It sounds like I'm calling them stupid. I'm not, but I'm saying to be in a place in their mind to be able to develop themselves and have the ambition to get them to a house that they can afford themselves. But that's never necessarily going to happen in any society, because nobody is.
That's a myth they keep trying to sell us, that purely ambition will get you through. Like the Tories love doing it. They'll put the story of that working class boy who started his company up and now he's a multi-millionaire, and he did it purely out of ambition, which may be true for some people, but it takes ambition. Sometimes it will take education, sometimes it will take a bit of luck, a lot of the times it will take community and friends. It's not, I know rich people like to think they are amazing and God blessed and all the rest of it, but in reality it takes a lot more than purely luck and ambition to be successful at something. You can be as ambitious as you want, but if people don't take your ideas seriously, you're not going to get very far. It takes a lot of things to make people successful, and I think London has become more and more about making a few people very successful.
Can I analyse your definition of success? Because if you're thinking purely financially, then obviously that will always be an issue. There are people who are successful who don't make a lot of money because they're carers, because they're nurses, because they're, whatever they do, they're successful in their job and they're very good at it and they have success. What they don't have is financial gain.
Or value by the state.
Value by the state. And
which, again, but I think all those things, I know it may seem like I'm just chucking stuff out there, but I think all those things mean something and they all tie into each other, which is why politicians are perfectly happy to let the housing crisis go in the way it is, because these people are easy people.
I'm not even sure that they could have much of an influence over.
They can
necessarily.
It's easy.
I don't think they can. I don't think politicians can.
They enforce the rules that they created. They make local councils go, I am going to build affordable housing, and by affordable I mean that other people can afford it. I am going to make it so my nurses and doctors are paid a decent wage. I am going to make it so if you are on benefits, you're not trapped on benefits if you don't want to be. I am going to make it that if you're a mother, like they do in lots of other European countries, very successful ones I might add, I don't need to go out to work to pay somebody else to look after my kid, so I can afford to stay in this house. It's right, we need to look at things, but I think all those people that are now, all this housing stuff is just another example of people being disenfranchised from society and being told you're not actually worth anything unless you own something, and that's sad.
I think you have a point there, and you've broken it out into its constituent parts, and I think you're pretty correct there. And it comes straight back down to the the whole apathetic or apathy towards.
Which is why people don't vote, and that's
politics.
why I say a lot of the rules and a lot of things politicians have done over the past 20 years haven't actually affected the people that we need to vote. Even Labour, they didn't push up nurses' pay, doctors' pay. They didn't make it easier to become socially mobile. You cannot have a situation where owning a house is meant to be the ultimate sign of being British, but yet too many people can't do it. That's sad, surely. That's a failure of your system completely.
Well, kind of. System keeps going, though. People are still buying things.
Hence why the new establishment is suggesting a revolution for a new age. How that takes form, I don't know. Maybe we will come to that conclusion before the end of the show, gents.
But I'll be honest with you, it feels like we've gotten to a point where we can't actually get any further, even in this kind of conversation, because it's got to a deadlock where, I'm actually beginning to feel like there's nothing I could do, even if I wanted to do it, even though I'm doing a bit of a podcast called The New Establishment. It's like, what the hell is the point of me being here? I might as well seriously, because we're talking about Ukraine that nobody cares about, really, and they're just going to watch and go like, oh, there might be something going on, but I'm just going to get on and probably worry more about Ebola.
Which is where I disagree with you. The whole intention is to get people talking about this, so thinking that what can I change? One of the easiest changes that anybody can make is voting for something. If people aren't voting...
Why don't they vote for us?
Because, like Russell Brand, I feel if I became part of the system, that I might become part of the problem. And really, I think we need to encourage those people in the system to do more. Because whether or not we went into politics, let's say tomorrow, me, you, and T-Dog, we're going to stand for a role, that's just 3 of us. What we need to do is get hundreds of people up and down the country to go to their politicians, start questioning your politicians, start not just tweeting at your MP and going, you're a twat, but actually going, what are you doing for me? Not just start,
You mean actually broadcasting the specific policies that will affect the individual in their constituency on a day-to-day basis. What you're going to do and what have you done and what's the evidence. Because, politics is not broadcast. All these debates, you might think, we're talking about this now, we're talking about this now, we're talking about this now, and they give these great, wonderful statistics, but then there's nothing that I can sit down and say, I now live in Hammersmith and this has happened and this is going to affect me in a positive way and develop me as an individual and all those people that live around me. It's not there. I know more about X Factor than I do about current politics.
Well, but there you go.
And so does everyone else. That's the problem. And the only people that care about politics are the politicians themselves and the people that read up on it. And those are few and far between.
I think
they're more about individualistic, selfish ambition, which is money, fame, the feeling of respect that being a politician comes, and the free lunches and the dinner parties and the old establishment that is currently there with the Masons and all everything around that. It's like, it's all so steeped in tradition. We're getting right back to the whole tradition argument, but what is the point? What is the point if I can't turn around and say, they did that for me, I gave them an idea, I maybe hit like on one of their policies, and because enough people hit like, that they tracked back via the IP address, they happen to be within their constituency, that they then did it for me. Never seen it.
But I think you can. I think this is now the age where people need to be more demanding of their politicians.
I think you can.
And I think they can be convinced to do it. I think that is why disorderly conduct and the new establishment is here. I think we can get people to get a bit crazy.
I don't think it's disorderly conduct. I just think that's a lovely name for our programme, for our show. But it is a new establishment.
It is. I don't think people don't care about politics. I don't think they care about X Factor and that more. I think politicians are just so repellent and unappealing to the masses that people stopped paying attention to what they were doing. So they thought nothing of spending.
I think too many people don't
realise. Duck house.
It's true. I don't think enough people realise how much politics affects their daily lives.
They don't. Yeah, they don't know anything. There's nothing they can do about it. But there's everything you can do about it. Like the difference between a law and a rule. The difference between a policy and an act. People can do a lot to affect politicians.
Do you know when no one really knows what's happening politically? It's because it's almost like mysticism. It's almost like a priesthood where they've got secret ceremonies that no one really fucking knows what they're going on at, because it's not in layman's terms. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a different, the political class we've got a political class here. Every prime minister that there's been for the last 30, 40 years has gone to be the CEO of some company and made an absolute mint of money. Keep those boys sweet, then you're going to automatically have a great job. It doesn't matter who you vote for. This is the problem. I don't think our parliamentary system works anymore. I think the House of Lords is a joke and has been a joke for quite some time.
Yeah.
But where are you going to go? You can't. You're stuck,
But you can do something. But what happened was, again, I say this to people: we had an opportunity to change the House of Lords, all right? We had the opportunity.
Who did?
The voters of this country had the opportunity to change something.
Did we know enough about it? I didn't vote.
That's the claim people make, but it was clearly
When?
for an elected upper chamber. They were given the option to vote for an elected upper chamber. What did they do? Yeah, I'm not going for that because they hated Nick Clegg so much. I go back to the point that people have been. I don't think.
So you tell me that there's a referendum on changing the upper chamber?
Yeah, there was, and I think it was 2 local elections ago.
Two local elections ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know enough about
It was
that.
all over the press.
But why wasn't Dermot O'Leary presenting it?
Yeah, why did they call it the upper chamber rather than the House of Lords?
Well, I think they did actually call it the House of Lords. I was just referring to it myself as the upper chamber. But we did get the chance. Nobody voted. Or people ignored it or said no to it.
Or didn't know about it, didn't understand it, and it wasn't.
No, I think,
broadcast
like you
wide
said,
enough.
I think basically there is an establishment, and people for the most part are happy with that establishment, or they think
they're
they
not.
are. No,
they're not.
they think they are, right? Or the ones that are voting.
No, they don't think they are.
right? But they don't want to change it. They're too scared of the change, Rob.
No, it's a tinderbox at the moment,
No,
and
they're
it has
scared.
been for
I
a
think
number of
people
years.
are scared. You just look
Scared
at the
of what?
Scotland referendum. Scotland, right? Scotland, the first independence referendum for a country in years, right? Scotland voted no.
But is that necessarily a bad thing? I've got to say, if they've waited...
I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that's a rarity.
You've said that they voted no, and that sounds like that was a negative.
No, well, they voted no, as in that was a rarity. In Europe, generally when countries have gone to the poll to vote for independence, they've voted yes. Scotland's the first time that somebody's voted no to independence.
Who's the they, and why are they scared? And explain that.
Again, these are worthwhile questions asking. They're people who were scared about what would happen after independence. They were scared about, was the oil money enough?
Well,
would they get their pensions paid? Would they get their...
woman, and she works here in London, and she was against it from the off, and she's Glaswegian, literally from the off. She was so dead against it. She goes, we are Great Britain. We're not just like little country section north.
Why couldn't they be Great Scotland? Great Scott.
That wasn't her argument, and I'm gonna put words into her. But she felt that it unified, as I believe that Europe, to be unified in Europe is better than being a solo country. That's only my opinion. I think if you have a bigger support network, just like a family, if you've got a bigger support
Yeah. I got you. Look, I'm torn on the issue. I'm a big fan of changing the status quo, and I think, unfortunately, you've got a situation in this country where Scotland's very liberal, and the England's not in terms of government. It's not. So I think I was surprised they didn't go for the yes. Scotland's got free education, free medical prescriptions for pensioners. We don't have that in the UK.
So is Wales.
Yes, they do.
So we do have it in the UK.
Sorry, in England. England, sorry.
Okay.
See, I can't get the unit out of my mind, but I think that would have been a great opportunity to change the game as well.
I think what tipped the balance towards no was the ex-Prime Minister Gordon Brown coming out of media retirement, let's put it that way, because he's still a working politician, to voice his opinion, and a very strong opinion that was heard. should, because he has seen how those lines of, I'm not even sure what to call them, financial lines, the connections between what happens south of their border and what would happen if they cut off. And then other businessmen said, okay, we are not delivering business to Scotland, we are not working with Scotland, because it's they're going to put new policies in place. It's going to cost us a lot of money to work up there now, because they're going to screw things up, and so we're just going to stay south of the border. And so you have someone coming out of retirement, or supposed media retirement, to say, don't do it because you're going to lose out, and you're going to lose a hell of a lot of money, which means you are going to lose infrastructure, influence. You're not going to have I don't know.
I personally,
general things.
I won't dwell on it too much. I'd say that people are always going to vote no to it. I think the margins by which the margins by which no campaign won, I think they were always going to win. I just think what Gordon Brown done was he got more people out to vote for the no side of the campaign.
But I think voting yes, and the idea of yes for a lot of intellectual people that probably knew what would happen if they did win that election, was to stir up the whole United Kingdom's political system to its bones. You have a whole
I think it really did
itself. I don't think it has. I don't think it's changed all that much. They've given a couple of powers. Yeah, you heard on the Sky News.
I think it's meant that change will have to happen. You've got a situation where, one section of the country has a totally different type of politics from the other side of the country. You've got a situation where Labour MPs, I think they've got 56 Scotland MPs at the moment. Apparently they'll have 0 after the next election. I don't know how true that is. But you're going to see a situation where it will have to change now, because you cannot have a system where Scottish MPs are voting on English laws, blah, blah, blah. All those things have come to the forefront, and I think it will change. I think by the next election, you will see a lot of change happening, especially with the House of Lords. It is a farce.
I disagree.
I've got to say, I don't know why England doesn't adopt what Wales and Scotland have done. Pardon me. Adopt what England and Scotland have done, having their own national parliaments. Do you know what I mean? If England, Scotland has one, Wales has one, why doesn't England have a? And then you have Westminster as Great Britain. That's the.
Well, no. All you need to do, if you had sorry to get really nerdy political on your hair, but all you would need to do is turn the current House of Parliament into the national chamber for England, and then the upper house is an elected house which represents the entire country. So you've literally got a Congress and a Senate, if you will.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's all you need to do, and I reckon that is what.
Let's make that happen.
I'll see what I can do, ladies and gents. Thank you for sticking with us. We're going to take a short break quickly and then come back. I was going to discuss Greece after this, but I'm like, do you know what? I just don't feel like talking about Greece. Do any of you boys feel like talking about Greece? Is a poll you want to go down?
I might need to get another beer.
But we're going to take a break and come back, and we'll be back with Is Honesty the Best Policy? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Disorderly Conduct. It's more than just a name. It's a way of life. This is New Establishment. Thank you.